All right, y'all. We are back on Rooted and Radiant, and I am your host, Ashley. And I am so excited that you are here today. This month is all about real talk and love, and we are starting the series off strong. We have guests joining us today. Brittany is not new to the podcast, she's been here before. But her fiance Eric is joining us today, and I'm so excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. And to provide a little bit of context, Britt came almost a year ago today, actually. So
Yeah.
like July of last year, she came and we talked. We had a heart to heart. We had an unfiltered girl talk. All things dating, relationships, hurt, all of the things. And we're like in a full circle moment. So I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today. And this episode is all about when God writes your love story from singleness to engagement and what it looks like when you take your hands off of the wheel and just let God have control. So I'm going to give a little intro on Britt and Eric, and then I will let them take it from there. Brittany is a civil engineer and a professional photographer based in St. Pete, Florida. She's passionate about disciplining young women seeking God's truth and supporting the mission to end sex trafficking through her work with Selah Freedom. Eric is the assistant director of video at Kelby One, a worship leader at Fifth Avenue Baptist Church, and is beginning a career in real estate. He's passionate about disciplining men, serving his church community, and worshiping God through music. Their story is not just about love, it's about transformation, surrender, and trusting God's timing. So whether you're single, you're dating, engaged, this episode will encourage you to wait well, pursue healing, and trust that God knows exactly what he's doing. So welcome to the show, Britt and Eric.
Thank you for having
Hey,
us.
yeah, thanks for having us. This is
You're
exciting.
so welcome.
Yeah, I had to go back and listen to the episode that we did. And it was so funny because we had talked about like my Instagram in the back, and now I'm back on Instagram for my business. And I was like, man, back in the day, I was like, don't DM me. And I'm going to be like, DM me, please.
No, yeah, you were literally like, I mean, you can find me on Instagram, but like you won't find me there because I'm
Yeah, I was
not
like, I
on.
literally won't answer.
That is hilarious. Okay, so we're going to cover some amazing things today, but I want to start with them getting to know a little bit about you. So I'm curious to see if some of your answers change, Britt. So let's start with what is a 10 for you? Let's start with that.
10 for me, which is funny because last time I was like, what is that? And now I know. A perfect 10 for me is, I think now it's just a day to relax. We've been so busy in this season. So I think like a time where I can just like go on a walk and be in nature, be outside and just kind of like be calm and at peace like that now instead of doing all the busy things, I think is a 10 for me.
Yeah. What about you, Eric?
What is a 10?
Do you know what that means?
No.
So it could be like a perfectly cut steak. It could be a walk with 80 degrees and no humidity. It could be like,
Okay.
Like what's like you would put the 100 emoji for?
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, that's a tough question. There's a lot of those that I could put.
Yeah.
I think right now, currently, I love music, and if I were sitting on a beach right now, which we actually
We
are
are
going to
going
the beach
to
later
this.
today. Sitting on the beach, listening to some of my favorite tunes, that would be a 10 right now.
Okay, nice. And what is one thing that you can do over and over again and never get tired of?
Man, there's probably a lot of things. I think making like a nice cup of coffee in the morning that's like got the perfect amount of like sweetness and milk. It's my oat milk, and just like sitting on the couch and like breathing or just being quiet. I'm really in a lot of like quietness season. I'm
That's good.
like,
I love that.
Yeah.
Eric?
What can I never get enough of? This is very cliche, but I tell her this all the time.
Oh, no.
I really enjoy just spending time with her and
Aw.
No,
doing
I
things
should have said that for
together.
mine then.
That's why I let you go
I
first.
like being alone.
Yeah.
Myself.
I need my alone time.
I like it quiet with no one else there. And he's like, I love spending time with you.
That's amazing. That is literally amazing. And what is one thing that you just don't understand?
I mean, God's will is like a. That's what I definitely don't understand. I think I don't understand why so many of us, when we know the things that, like, we know the things that we shouldn't do, but yet, like, we continually go back to, like, our sins. And I'm like, I know the reason, but it's also, like, when you do it, you're like, I don't know why I keep doing this.
Yeah.
You know, like why we can't always just like learn from our mistakes. Just like it's part of being human beings and living in a falling world. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for me, I've been reading this book called The Story of Reality. And something that pops out to me from that book is even though I say I understand it, I don't think any of us will really understand why God allows evil in this world.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand because we live in a fallen world, but why does he let bad things happen to seemingly good people? Seemingly people who are doing the right thing. I think the Christianese answer is, well, he wants us to go through hard times and surrender ourselves to him, and that's easier said than done. But also, it's just a question that's been popping up more in this book that I've been reading.
Yeah, I have the same question that I don't understand that why bad things happen to good people. So awesome. Okay. And then best piece of advice you've ever been given, and then we're jumping in.
I think for this season, and we'll talk about it with our story too, is like you just can't mess up God's plan. God's plan is very fluid. It's not just always like black and white of you have to do this, you have to do this. Like here's the set path. And if you miss a step on your own, like, oh, well, whoops, like you've totally gone off you've totally gone off the path. I'm a hand talker, so but yeah, I think that's just like always been comforting to me. And that's a good piece of advice that I have thought of with our story and just moving forward too is like, there's just nothing that you can do. Like, you're not powerful enough, essentially, to mess up like God's plan in your life.
I love that.
For me, I'll give you a bonus one.
Ooh.
Daily double.
From each of my grandfathers. So my grandpa on my dad's side, he always told us to, when you're looking for a career, when you're looking for a job, to do what you enjoy because he was a bricklayer by trade because he had to provide for his family and he didn't enjoy it, but he had to do it. And so he always told us that even if we don't exactly know what we're doing, find our passions and then pursue those, and you'll never work a day in your life because you'll be happy, you'll enjoy what you're doing. And then the second little bonus one was my other grandpa. He always has this saying, there are two choices on the shelf, pleasing God or pleasing self. And so I still remember that to this day. It's something that I always try and live by.
Wow. We love that for the grandpas. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. They're coming in hard.
Coming in hot,
Grandpa's coming
grandpa.
with a perfect 10 on the advice.
No, seriously. Sheesh. So I'm excited for us to dive in. We're going to start with the single season. I think that is the most challenging season. I feel like it's a season that we all want to avoid but it's a part of you have to be single to start a relationship. So talk a little bit about like what your single season was like emotionally and spiritually. So I'll let whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I can go first because my story is very different than Eric's, where I don't have a lot of relationship history in my past. I've dated two people for a max of like 3 or 4 months. And I had a lot of like, it was usually years in between of dating people. So I had dated one guy my senior year of college for like 3 months. We broke up 3-ish years later. I dated someone here in Tampa, and then 3-ish months later, we broke up. And then like a year and a half, maybe a year. And then Eric and I started dating. So most of my walk has been me being single. And I think that time, like my spiritual health, I say is typically better for me actually when I'm single because I can really focus and laser in like on God, which is like what Paul talks about when like he's like, it's better to be single because like the married person is concerned about the things of their spouse as opposed to the things of God. Is that
Which is what I was going to bring up.
We're going to bring up. Oh, foreshadowing.
Of
That's what I was
course
just talking
you
about.
were.
A classic. Oh, I think that time really allowed me to focus on my own spiritual health and grow my relationship with Jesus apart from somebody else because like you can grow spiritually with somebody else. And there's sometimes when missionary dating actually works, you know, again, like God, you can't mess up his plans, but it's healthiest when you are spiritually healthy beforehand and emotionally healthy when you get into the relationship. Cause like we talked about in our episode a year ago, like you don't want to bleed all over someone who didn't cut you. Like if they're not the one who hurt you, if you're not healing, you're going to just put that all on somebody else. So I had a lot of good times with like community and really wrestling in my waiting. And I think the wrestling in my waiting really helped me learn what I wanted in a spouse too. And so I could like learn to be alone, because like it doesn't get better when you get engaged. Like I can say now, like the singleness, like the loneliness, your insecurities, like your selfishness, like that's not going away when you meet somebody. It actually like makes it 10 times harder. And we'll get into that later, but what would you say?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was gonna bring it up. 1 Corinthians 7. 1 Corinthians 7, 32 through 35 basically talks about that. 32 says, I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking how to please him. And when I was thinking about that, we are going to be going through a book actually next month called Sacred Marriage. Is it?
You're going through a book.
No.
You're going through that book yourself.
I've already, yes, that's right. It's a different book. Sorry. I've read through this book before, Sacred Marriage by Gary Thomas, and he has this quote in there that I think perfectly sums up the single versus married life. He says, if you want to be free to serve Jesus, there's no question, stay single. Marriage takes a lot of time, but if you want to become more like Jesus, I can't imagine any better thing than to get married. Because being married forces you to face some character issues you'd never see or face otherwise.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I think that, boom, mic
Mic
drop,
drop.
done.
Literally.
Yeah, because I think that perfectly sums it up. If we are passionately pursuing Jesus, then in your singleness, you have all this time that you have available that you can devote to him, you can devote to his community, you can devote to being with community and having really deep relationships with your friends. And then on the other side, when you get married, then you get shown all of these flaws and they're under a microscope because we're not even married, we're just engaged right now, and we're seeing the flaws of ourselves and each other, and it's making us work through some of those. And so I thought that was very powerful.
Wow. Holy moly. So we talked about this a little bit before we got started about, and you kind of alluded to this, Brittany and Eric, about it magnifies when you are in a relationship. So can you talk about some of the things that you struggled with in the waiting, and how did you navigate that, and how did you handle it?
You want to go?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think in the waiting season, it's hard when especially you're going through all the seasons where you're the last of your friend group, and then you keep finding more friend groups, and then you keep being the last. So it's like every time you keep finding friends that are like younger and younger that are single. And I think in the waiting season, I really struggled with, like, because I'm someone where I'm so black and white about things. I'm like, okay, like, and I also feel like I earn things by doing the right thing. So like the point of like my contention that brought me to Jesus is like, I can lean towards being like a Pharisee. And like Eric and I are very different. Like he's very grace leaning and I'm very truth leaning. And so I'm so much like, I'm by the book and I'm like, okay, like I haven't had sex before marriage. I dated well. I did these things. I waited, and I wrestled with like, okay, well, like, why is this person who's not doing it right? Like, why is God giving them a spouse? And that would be very frustrating to me, because I'd be like, well, I'm not like making out with people on the first date, or I'm not doing like whatever I would think in my mind is like, this is the right path. Like I'm doing what the Lord's asking of me. Why am I not getting the things that I want? And I think that was like one of the hardest things in that waiting season. And something that I really had to learn was like, I heard this on a podcast, and it's called Call Her Holy, which was like the play off of the Call Her Daddy podcast. It's actually like a really great podcast. Not Call Her Daddy. Call Her Holy is a really great podcast. I'm not promoting that other podcast. But one of the girls has a broken engagement and the other is married. And the girl who has a broken engagement, she had a quote on there that I just loved. And she said, marriage is a gift, not a reward. And that was like something that I carried through with me. In between breaking up with my ex and meeting Eric, there was like a 1.5 year span. And so in that season, like when I was waiting, that was when I'd heard that quote. And I was like, oh, that's really good. Because I'm like, especially as you wait longer and longer, you think the expectation of how good they're going to be is rising. Because you're like, okay, well, if I dated when I was 22, yeah, they wouldn't be making as much money or they wouldn't be as mature. Like, but now that I'm like upper 20s, 30s, it's like, okay, you should be amazing. You should be making all this money. You should be X, Y, and Z. So I'm like, because I've waited this long and there's an expectation, I think, from me and like my community that it's like, all right, they're going to be like the best person there ever was. This is the reason why you're waiting. Like, and there's so many ways in which you are, but in other ways, like not. And so I thought that I'd earned something. So I think that's like one thing that I really learned in my waiting season was like, okay, I haven't earned this. So therefore, like I can wait and not expect them or God to do what I'm asking him to do, because really we deserve hell and punishment. So
Yeah.
like at the bottom of it. So I'm like, that's just an extra layer of me expecting this from God.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the hardest parts of singleness was trying to figure out how to navigate being single, because I'm the complete opposite of her, where I have been in relationships for most of my adult life. And so, not being in a relationship, I had to kind of navigate all of the things of being able to sit in my singleness, to be okay with being single. And I think one of the things that God showed me the most is that community is so important.
Mm.
And the people that you surround yourself with are really important, because the people that you surround yourself with can either help you or hurt you along the way. And I'm so very thankful that in this past time of singleness, I had my church community. I've been at my church as a worship leader for 5 years now. And because of that, I had this really core community who walked alongside me and was able to speak wisdom to my situation, to just be there for me. And I really got comfort in that community. So I think that that is very important during your singleness. Not only being able to have time to stay focused on Jesus and what his plan is for your life, but also just really digging into relationships with other people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I literally was just talking about this with a friend yesterday that an idle mind is the enemy's playground and the enemy operates in isolation. So I love that you both talked about the importance of community. So if you had to sum it up in one or two lessons that you learned in being single, what would you say that lesson is?
2 points.
Points.
I think the one being the marriage is a gift, not a reward. To really get deep with the Lord and ask him to show you the things in yourself that you really need to work on. Like work on those
Yeah.
things while you're single, because it's a lot easier to do it then than the pressure of being in a
Yes,
relationship.
right.
Mm.
And then what's the third one? Do we want to combine ours?
Yeah,
Do-
we'll combine ours. Mine would be, don't waste your wait. Let God prepare you in the season that you're in, and not
Mm.
just for what's to come. A lot of times in our singleness, we're so focused on, when are you going to bring this person into my life, instead of focusing more on, okay, well, how can I serve you better? How can my relationship deepen with you better? How can my relationship deepen with the people around me? And utilizing that waiting period to grow closer to God.
Wow. Okay. That's really good. I want to talk about this a little bit, the loneliness. So, loneliness is a thing that people avoid, but think that marriage or being in a relationship changes that. So, can you speak specifically to the importance of, like what you just said, of dealing with those things while you're single versus trying to deal with them when you're in a relationship?
Yes. We I wasn't expecting, and we'll talk more about engagement season, but like when you get into the relationship, I think I always knew in my mind, I was like, okay, relationships aren't going to solve all of my problems. But I think I didn't expect at the same time that it's like, oh, but it's not going to make my problems like easier. It's actually going to make them harder. And I thought it would make it a little bit easier. I knew that they weren't going to solve it. But so I think like with the loneliness piece, like I had always heard like it's better to be lonely and single than lonely in a marriage. So it's better to be by yourself and have the confidence in who you are and with your community and learning and knowing your passions, where God is directing you, hearing his voice, all of those things. It's better to be lonely in that than to go into a marriage where it's like, okay, I thought this would solve all of my problems. And you're still seeking and seeking and seeking for that thing that's going to fill you. Because the loneliness isn't a problem of a person, it's seeking after God. It's the hole in your heart that's looking for God, and you're just looking for a person to satisfy that. So that's just not going to go away. Because also, when you're married, you still see them only after work. You would see them as much as a roommate, essentially. People think that, like, oh, we're going to spend 24/7. Not that we're married. We don't know that yet. But I've heard it from a lot of my married friends where they're like, we're just going to spend every day together and we're just going to wake up and
The
we're going to
expectation.
dance in the light of the fridge at night. Like,
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Wow.
Well, just people blow it way out of proportion. They're like,
Yeah.
it's just going to be like magical. And that's, there's great things in it, but like, it's not, they're going to be at work most of the week. You're going to be at work. You've got things going on. It's just not going to solve that part of you that wants to be deeply known. You're going to be
Yeah.
deeply known by your spouse, but you are deeply, deeply known by God. And so the loneliness is that piece instead of, I need a person to affirm me, instead of, I need to first be affirmed by God and who I am and my identity in Him. Then I can go forward and have realistic expectations, good high standards for who I'm looking for, and like have security when I go into a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, that's really good. I think for me, loneliness during that time, loneliness as for a lot of people is debilitating to some people. And at times it's been hard for me, but I think during this time of singleness, it was God revealed Himself to me through John. I believe it's John 15:7, when He says, "Abide in me, and my words abide in you. Ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you." And that really hit home for me in a way that I'd never really felt it before, because you read those verses, and that's the cool thing about the word, is that it's living and active. So you could read those verses one day, not get anything from it, and then the next day you read it and He really speaks to you. And so when I read that, I got the confidence in knowing that if I put myself fully into investing time with Him and my relationship with Him, then He's going to work those little things out. And when I started doing that, I had this sense of peace about me that just overwhelmed me. You know, the Bible talks about giving the peace that surpasses all understanding. When I really devoted myself to spending that time with Him, it was overwhelming to me, the peace that I had. And then I was okay in my singleness, and I got to the point where I was totally okay if I never had another relationship again. And that's what He's looking for, is that type of surrender. And exactly when I surrendered, that is when we met. A couple months after that, it's like, wow, that's all you were waiting
It
for.
is. But I will say, though, because I think I don't want people to hear that and be like, all right, well, I
Yes.
don't want someone now.
Right.
Because they always say, everyone and their mothers is always like,
Yes.
when you're not expecting it,
Yes.
that's when it'll happen. Or when you don't want it.
100%.
You think these pastors who have wives are up there on stage being, I never wanted a spouse ever. I was never searching at all.
Right.
And I found no one
No.
attractive. And so now here I am married, and the Lord forced me to. Because I think, yes, you should be secure in your singleness and be okay being alone. And I think that does happen when it's okay, this is the time when I'm comfortable with it. But I think to me, it's like a pendulum where there are some months in my waiting period where I could just be alone forever. This is great. And then there'd be other months where this is really hard. And I'm crying, praying to God, being like, this is unfair that you're giving it to other people. It feels like you're withholding from me. So I do want to say that, because I agree. But I also don't want people to hear that and think, well, another person saying, now I just have to be content, and then the Lord will
Right.
give that to me. Therefore, that's the key.
Well, I think the real point is the being surrendered.
Yeah.
Completely and fully actually surrendering yourself
Yeah.
to the situation. And that's completely different than saying it.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
really a heart matter where we are just completely, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to praise you and I'm going to be okay with whatever it is that you put me
Yeah.
through, and then walking in that obedience of just moving forward. And through that, that's where, with a heart of surrender, that's where He blesses.
Yeah. I think you can be content, but you can still have desires.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, being restless and being, my life will just never be complete. You know, it's really all a mental game of like, okay, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm not going to just stop my whole life and just keep like looking around and like waiting in one spot. so that I can just look around. Like I have to keep moving forward, and then like God's going to do what God's going to do, but I can still be going forward and being, Lord, please bring me marriage. Like, please bring me this because I still want it. Like, I think the desire doesn't mean you're not content too. So I think it's the
Right.
both of the things that we were saying.
Yeah. Were there any specific prayers that you prayed for your future spouse? I know everybody in the world is asking about the whole Sierra prayer that she prayed for Russell, because people are putting so much weight on that. So did either of you pray specific prayers for your spouse, and what did they look like?
For me, the prayer that I prayed is I prayed expectantly and I prayed boldly, where I basically prayed, if this is what you want, then great, and I will gladly accept it. But if not, then I am very much okay with that. And I think a lot of times as believers, we don't come to God with everything because we just think that, oh, maybe he's too big for this, or he doesn't really care about this small little thing. But in First John and in John and Matthew, Jesus is telling us to come boldly to his throne of grace. And he tells us that if we ask anything in his name and according to his will, that he hears us. He's not going to necessarily give us what we want, but
Right.
if it's according to his will, and he knows that it would be good for us, then he's going to answer it one way or another. And it was very comforting to me reading through that and knowing that I can boldly come to him with anything, no matter what it is. It could be something as trivial as, can I have time to take my dog on a walk today, or something
Right.
that small. But if you get into the habit of taking every concern and desire and care to him, then I think that's where that lies.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
I think mine was not as intricate as that. I'm like, oh wow.
Wow.
I'm more like,
You thought this
I was
through.
like, oh wow, I'm glad you prayed it because I didn't, I guess. The Lord was blessing me by your prayers. But I think mine was a lot more broad, I guess. I would pray a lot more for character things of my future spouse and for timing. So I would always pray, Lord, please do it in the right time. Because I came to the point when their relationships just weren't the right time and also not the right person. And so please only give this person to me, which is a dangerous prayer to pray. It's like, please only give this person to me if you think that I'm actually ready.
Right.
And that's a tough one to do because people are kind of just like, no, please just give it to me. I don't care if I'm ready. I just really want this thing. And so that was a hard prayer for me to pray. Only if I'm ready for this, don't give it to me please give it to me at the right time, which the Lord would, but it's more about my posture of, okay, I'm surrendering this to you. You know when I'm ready. So bring that when that's ready. And I also prayed for my future husband. My number one prayer that I'd always pray is, Lord, please let them love Jesus more than they love me, because everything else is going to come from that. And so I don't want to be an idol. Every rom-com is like, you complete me.
Oh
You're
my gosh.
everything I've
Freaking
ever
Jerry
wanted.
Maguire.
For real. I was like, people and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, all those things, which great movie, but still.
Still, super great
But
movie.
still, it's still a great movie. It's so fun. But the messages of it, as always, you're the person I've waited for, Disney princess moment, all those things. And so it's like, that's our idol then. We want a godly marriage, but it's still, even if it's godly, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be your idol still. It can still be your idol, even if it's a good thing. And so I was always, please let them love Jesus more than me, because then I know that they can be a leader. They can have compassion. They know how to love me well. If you don't understand the gospel, you don't understand marriage and how to love me, because you're always going to be seeking my affirmation. You're always going to be seeking for me to be your everything. And I told the Lord, I was like, I don't want to be someone's everything. I don't want that, because that's a pedestal that I will fall off of. I can't be your everything. So that was one prayer I always prayed, and just things that they would cherish me. I would just get specific with God. And I think years ago, I was always, I really want to marry someone with brothers. This was just really.
Oh my gosh.
And Eric has 2 brothers. So, because I grew up with a sister who I love. But I always just thought that would be fun for some reason. So even just little things, I would tell the Lord everything. I'd be like, this would be fun to have. I really like these things, but mostly character things. I did the Heart of Dating podcast, shout out, highly recommend. Actually, I don't know if you've listened. Do you? Yeah.
Yes,
So
Kate and
good.
JJ. Yes.
Kate and JJ. I literally use so many of their things that we'll talk about when we talk about how we met. I used so many of their tips and tricks, and they had a whole little exercise to go through your core values where you take it and you pare it down and you do your nice to haves, your need to haves. And when I finally made my core values, I actually have it sitting over there, but then I could pray through those too. So I'd pray, Lord, I pray that they're a leader. I pray that they have an intimate relationship with Jesus. I pray that they have emotional stability. I pray that they
Amen
have,
on that.
yeah, for real,
Woo!
emotionally unavailable. Why?
Please, we're
Why
out
is
of the
this
Navy
epidemic?
land. Please stop. No more.
Please no. So I would just pray through all of those things and I just get specific with the Lord because we shouldn't be afraid to do that either because the Lord wants to hear them. And it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed he's going to listen or he's going to listen, but not that he's going to answer all those things. But I'd rather bring them to the King of the universe than anybody else. He's the only one that can do anything about it. So,
No,
See, and that's a
literally.
great example of getting specific, coming boldly, and asking him for what your heart desires.
yeah.
I love that.